Is AI stealing our creativity? As technology evolves at a head-spinning rate, I've started to wonder, what does the future look like for human imagination? AI is being pushed left and right as a means to enhance our creative potential. But what if our growing dependence on it is actually turning us into slaves to the algorithms? Now that AI can write entire novels and is being subtly used across so many different industries, the line is becoming more and more blurred between human and artificial intelligence creativity and imagination. And today I wanted to dig into whether this could be a slippery slope, one where we eventually trade our imaginations for convenience. This certainly isn't my first time talking about these sorts of themes on my channel, but with platforms like YouTube starting to roll out more and more AI products for every tiny step of the creative process, it feels like a more urgent conversation to have now than ever. AI is powerful and convenient, but the truth is it's also rewiring the ways that we think, the ways we create, and the ways we can even imagine. If you're new here, my name is Kate Cassidy, and on this channel I talk about themes in tech, media, and culture. I work in the tech industry, but I also think it's so important to examine how these technologies are actually reshaping our society. So I'm glad you stumbled your way onto this video today. So here's a question. When we're using AI, are we creating or are we actually consuming on autopilot? AI tools are growing increasingly sophisticated, now capable of generating art and music and writing. I'm sure you've seen that everywhere. But all those things have historically been really challenging crafts that have required years of practice to develop the skill and for humans to struggle with before they can genuinely master it. Those skills were traditionally reserved for creatives and very imaginative, right-brained people who have all had to hone their craft over time. And while the spread of AI could be seen as a positive development for people who have been looking for creative assistance, or some might even argue that it's actually democratizing the creative process, I'm personally not so sure about that. Not so sure about this democratizing creativity. I think it raises very real concerns about the potential for AI to, over time, and if we're not careful, fully replace human creativity entirely. In the AI era, there's a really blurred line between creation and consumption. I know in my own friend group about a year and a half ago, I would say, we had this period of time where we got so into making songs on Suno.ai. Admittedly, it was very fun. We were making music, potentially. But the thing is, we're all not musicians. Just because we were able to write a prompt to make a song doesn't mean we went through the painstaking process of human creativity that it takes to actually produce music and put it out there into the world. We didn't learn an instrument or figure out a rhythm and a melody, and we certainly didn't pour our own emotional experiences into the lyrics of these songs. We just typed prompts and clicked buttons and enjoyed the outcome. Similarly, just because you can click a button and generate a poem doesn't make you a poet. Maybe this begs a broader question around what it means to be a true artist, but if you had AI spit out a generated poem, you didn't exercise your imagination or tap into your own unique human insights and experiences to encapsulate that and put it into words. And I think this is a really important distinction that isn't being talked about enough. There's a massive difference between generating content and actually creating. When you pair this supposed democratization of creative abilities with the capitalistic pressure to feed the insatiable algorithms and platforms' hunger for more and more content, all of a sudden, everyone's a content creator. But are we really creating, or are we forgoing the value of art and imagination and instead just becoming really good prompters? Prompters, not creators. I think these AI tools and the way that they are spreading to basically every platform, and there are so many startups in this space now, combined with that pressure to generate, is actually turning a lot of creatives and artists more into curators and prompters rather than independent, imaginative thinkers. And this line of thinking brought me down a rabbit hole to this fascinating psychological concept of the difference between convergent and divergent thinking. I think going over this difference is key to understanding what we might be losing, what we might be offloading to AI in the process of creating. Convergent thinking is basically your brain in critical thinking and analytical mode. It's logical and it's linear and it's drawing from existing solutions and data sets to come up with the right answer to any problem. Convergent thinking is working within boundaries. It's kind of the opposite of out-of-the-box thinking. It's in-the-box thinking using things that already exist. And it may not come as a surprise to you that AI is very, very good at this type of thinking. That's basically what it's programmed to do. But divergent thinking, on the other hand, that is where the magic tends to happen. It's like the creative mode for your brain when you need to solve a new problem or make an unexpected or unusual connection between two things or imagine something entirely new. It's when you actually deviate from the norm and move away from commonly existing strategies, instead to come up and generate entirely novel or creative ideas that don't exist yet. It's this type of thinking that is necessary when you want to tap into your imagination and create something new. It's a vital part of artistic creativity, and it's this type of thinking, divergent thinking, that actually creates art that moves people. Unlike AI, humans are uniquely well positioned to excel at things like divergent thinking. We can draw from the messy, beautiful chaos of the shared human experience and let our mind wander into imaginative states. And the problem is, the more we lean on AI for creative work, the less we exercise that ability of divergent thinking. Much like a muscle, these types of skills and this type of thinking, this way of using your brain, can actually atrophy over time. AI is really good at running data sets and spitting out outputs that seem coherent, but if we rely on that for the entire creative process, from ideation to execution, what are we giving up? I think it's safe to say that by tapping less and less into that divergent thinking, that very uniquely human skill, we will consequently produce less diverse art. And over time, we may see an impact on human creativity at large. And some argue that we've actually already been seeing some of these effects take shape. Personally, I don't know about you, I'm a little embarrassed to admit this, but I have been watching And Just Like That, the Sex and the City reboot, and it is truly awful. I honestly do not recommend unless you really need that nostalgic itch scratched for some reason. But while watching this show, one of the biggest criticisms that I've been seeing repeated all over online, on Reddit, is that the show feels like it's entirely AI generated. The writing is just that contrived, and the storyline and the dialogue lacks so much depth that people think there's no way real humans could have written this. This must be AI-generated content. Whether the writers are actually using AI or not, I think it's hilarious and very telling that as a society, the biggest insult, the biggest diss to someone's creativity that you can possibly come up with right now is that, oh, this feels like it's made by AI. AI-generated content, and calling something AI-generated content is essentially a big slap in the face. It's just the shorthand way of saying, oh, this feels entirely devoid of any sort of genuine connection to human creativity. And I think it's just what a perfect little phrase to capture that feeling of realizing something might actually be generated by technology and not a human with real experience and emotions and insights. That's my friend Caroline. But on a more serious note, when we consider the lack of divergent thinking that is happening, when we are relying so many different parts of the creative process and just throwing that to AI to generate it, I question what this means for the future of human creativity and imagination more broadly. In technological research, there's this concept called mechanized convergence, which essentially claims that AI outputs over time all start to look more and more the same because they're iterating on the same data sets, and over time it all just starts to look the same, and it's very similar. It's all converging on the same thing. And if over time humans rely more and more on AI to generate content rather than creating art for the sake, the inherent value of creating art, I start to wonder, will there be a convergence on homogeneity of a lot of the content that exists out there? Especially if we've gotten to the point where we're collectively, cognitively offloading everything from the innovation and the imagination standpoints as well, but I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit there. We're getting to cognitive offloading in a second. I think it's important to remember that there's another aspect of this entirely, and that is that boredom is the birthplace of creativity. And now more than ever in this society where we're all addicted to digital dopamine, we're seeing a widespread death of boredom. Think for a second about this in your own life. When was the last time that you were truly bored? Like you're stuck staring at the ceiling, letting your mind wander entirely, and you don't just immediately turn to your phone just to satiate or fill in that moment of discomfort. When was that? I made a whole vibes-based video on this before about how unlocking your creativity requires boredom and how I think it's important for us to all invite more moments of boredom back into our daily lives, and how this is such an impactful way to push back in this era of instant gratification and endless scrolling. But for this video, I was getting so into the research, and it turns out that there are actual neuroscience concepts that back me up as well. In our brains, there's this thing that's called the default mode network, or the DMN, and it's essentially our brain's creative playground in a certain section of the brain. This part of your brain activates and comes alive when we're doing task negative work, which is when you're not focused on tasks or goals or generally just drawing in an immense amount of external stimuli. That's task negative work. The DMN is where daydreaming happens, where memories can connect and cement in new ways, where you can introspect and turn inwards, and also, importantly, where your imagination lives. Basically, all of those wonderful things that are needed to tap into human creativity and to create art. But between our phones and our algorithmic social media feeds and AI now trying to immediately fill in every single creative gap, when do we actually let our minds genuinely wander? When do we tap into our DMNs and engage in task negative work and time? I think we're collectively becoming so immensely uncomfortable with any empty space that if we are feeling a little bored, have a little downtime, feel empty, are having a creative block, an issue, a writer's block, we immediately seek to fill that gap. Like if you can't think of what to write, you can just ask ChatGPT, or if you need inspiration on design, you can turn to Figma's AI tools or another AI. There's so many out there that are just there to immediately generate a design for you before you even have to give that first pass yourself. But when we do this, when we immediately punt something to AI the second we hit a creative block, we're forgetting the fact that it's in that discomfort, it's in that struggle, in that boredom, that's where creativity truly lives. And by eliminating all of this struggle and friction, we might also be eliminating our abilities to generate original thought. We are eliminating our potential for divergent thinking. All of these things feel intertwined for me in a way that's not talked about, at least not that I have seen enough. I think it gets really concerning here because there's a genuine cognitive cost of letting everything get so convenient. In psychology, there's this concept of cognitive offloading, which is essentially where we rely on external tools rather than using our brain for certain tasks. We become more efficient in this process of letting certain things go. That's why none of us know how to do long division in our heads anymore, because guess what? We have a calculator in our pockets 24/7. But now with the ubiquity of AI in the digital sphere, we're offloading creativity itself. And when it comes to systems in the brain, it's very much use it or lose it. That's why yo no hablo español muy bien, even though I took it for 11 años. Haven't been using it, so totally lost that skill, unfortunately. But similarly, if we stop using the neural pathways that exist within our brain to do all that creative thinking, imagination, or coming up with novel concepts, making unexpected connections, if we aren't using that, we are going to lose those as well. They're going to weaken more and more over time. In the YouTube sphere, which is admittedly where I see this most prevalently come into play, definitely recency bias because I create on here, so this is where I see it the most. There are so many small creator channels right now that are telling and encouraging people who want to grow on the platform to use as many AI tools as possible. There are tools for thumbnails, tools for scripting your videos, tools for coming up with the concepts in the first place. You can use AI for everything. And the YouTube platform itself has now created a full suite of AI tools within Studio that is supposed to be there to assist you with development. But essentially, YouTube has made it so you don't even have to conceptualize your videos from scratch. They'll suggest the video ideas, write the description, generate different AI-generated images that you can use for the thumbnails, and even help develop the scripts. And with the nature of the beast of creating online being this constant pressure to be consistent and to prioritize quantity over quality, I just know that there are going to be a ton of small creators who are using these for every step of their creative process. And I can see why it's tempting, but I think about how in the future, over time, we're probably just gonna start to see less and less original content. Everything might start to feel more derivative as we again go through that mechanized convergence, and over time everything just becomes homogenous. Who knows? We'll see what happens with my hypothesis, but I think the reality that we might start seeing fewer original concepts and original content over time is actually the cost of us all relying on these very convenient tools so much. It's the cost of outsourcing everything for the sake of convenience. And I'm gonna make a whole video on AI's impact on YouTube specifically soon, so if you want more on that topic, then you better subscribe to follow along. I know you know where that button is. I'm doing these types of deep dives all the time, so come and join me if you want to. And just at this very moment, I live very close to, sorry to break the fourth wall here, you guys, but I live very close to a music studio and they have started playing very loudly outside, so I'm gonna break the golden rule and I'm gonna put the lavalier mic closer to my face, guys. Please don't flame me too much. This is live. I just gotta adjust. I have to film now and all these musicians are outside my apartment. Okay, look. I'm not saying that AI is evil. I'm not saying that everything is bad about it, but I think that we all just need to be more cognizant and conscious of the trade-offs that are happening by outsourcing so much to these tools. I totally use AIs for some things, but I think we just need to be aware of the potential implications. And maybe I'm alarmist here. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Maybe I'm alarmist, but I think when you pair all these different concepts, the decline of divergent thinking, the constant avoidance of boredom, the pressure to generate so much content very consistently and have quantity over quality, and the broad cognitive offloading that's happening for the sake of convenience, I think when you consider all of those factors, the potential downsides of over-reliance on AI and technology more broadly becomes more and more clear. Imagination isn't just about making a perfect picture or creating a catchy song or making a video, a YouTube video that's going to go viral. That's not what it's about. It's about how we interpret our unique life experiences and how we generate, and I say generate, how we come up with solutions to unstructured problems and entirely new things that we didn't even know exist. That's what imagination is. That's not what it's about. It's about how we understand and interpret our unique human experiences and how we navigate challenges to problems that arise that don't have structured solutions, things that we've never encountered before. I would argue that imagination and true art is deeply tied to our humanity. It's that personal flavor and soul that is essential to creating and to art. Sure, AI can assist in certain creative processes. It can analyze data sets. It can match patterns and derive from works that already exist. And it can even mimic other human artists, but it can't replace that raw energy that comes from emotion and intuition and experience. I'm definitely getting a little woo-woo now, but AI can't feel heartbreak and interpret that experience and move through it in a way where you put that into a song and you put it on paper, and then someone listens to that song years later on their car radio and they start crying because it evokes that emotional experience that they've encountered as well within them. AI can't do that. AI can also feel very real injustice in the world and cry about it, but also make a graffiti mural that then sparks protests or societal change. AI just doesn't have that ability to feel that thing, to actually create that genuine art. That, my friends, is our human gift and talent that we can bring to the world. And maybe I'm extreme here, but I don't think that we should be trading that for just everything to be so convenient. We need to think about the cost of using these AI tools to eliminate all that struggle, all that humanity, all that human emotion, just for the sake of convenience. So what do we do? How do we move forward? How do we live in an AI-saturated world without losing our creative souls? First, I'm gonna sound like a broken record with so many other videos on my channel, but we need to be intentional. Before you prompt AI, I know it's easy, I know you want to, but before you do it, try to do the writing on your own. Try and journal for a bit. Do a proper brainstorm on a whiteboard before you just turn to ChatGPT to generate a bunch of things. Sketch it out before you just generate AI-generated images. Like, let yourself actually struggle. Let yourself have that discomfort. That friction is where growth actually happens, and I think we all need to embrace and invite more friction back into our lives. I don't know if I'm like such a contrarian for saying that. I'm sure if you made it to this point in the video, you might agree, but I think we all need life could be a little bit harder. We've made it very easy on ourselves. Also, I think it's important to protect your boredom. Like, protect it. And I know that sounds weird. Learn to do nothing. No screens, no inputs, not even a podcast on that walk. I see you, I am you, actually. I feel like I have been through periods of my life where I wanted to fill every second of the day. I was thinking that I was, learning new things and just engaging with all these different concepts. And so I would be listening to podcasts 24/7, but we don't need to be doing that. And in fact, we shouldn't be doing that. Let ourselves get bored. I'm on board with this one with you guys too. Let it just be you and your thoughts, and let your mind wander and see what bubbles up. My most creative times are definitely not when I'm under pressure, not when I'm trying to force myself to generate a bunch of things or thinking that I'm gonna get something out of listening to a podcast. It's when I'm on a walk and I'm not listening to anything at all. Or it's that odd in-between time. I now sleep with my phone out in my living room away from my bedroom. And it's that in-between time where I haven't fallen asleep yet, but my mind is kind of just still processing things throughout the day. I have a journal right by my bed because that is one of my most creative times. So again, just allow yourself to get bored, get still, and push back on that constant need to fill your days with digital stimuli. Remember that AI is a tool, but it shouldn't be used as an entire replacement. Use it to enhance your creativity, not as a substitute for it. It can be great at handling some boring stuff or things that you might not be that good at, but you have the energy and the spirit and the soul for all of that more uniquely spicy human stuff. Let yourself tap into that. The truth is, we're at an inflection point. I really think we are. We can, or we could, gradually let AI completely erode all of our imaginative capacities, becoming less accustomed to engaging our creative, divergent thinking, and ultimately turning us into curating consumers rather than actual creators. Or we could consciously choose to preserve what makes us human. Efficiency isn't everything, and I think that imagination is worth protecting. How are you navigating creativity in the AI era, and what are you doing to protect your imagination? I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. I'm sure we could all learn from each other and help each other out on this one because it is so prevalent today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will talk again very soon. Bye.